Association of Software and Services Companies, or better known as Nasscom, is a not-for-profit Indian consortium created to promote the development of country's IT and business process outsourcing industries. Nasscom has over 2,800 member companies catering to an approximately $190 plus billion IT BPM industry in India that employs over 4 million professionals and contributes over 8% relative to India's GDP. With the pandemic hitting us at the start of the year, this labor-centric IT industry was badly hit, as the basic premise for this industry is client data, which is handled primarily on trust, integrity, and above all, on timeliness. Within a week of the lockdown, this apex body, though unprepared, swung into action and mobilized the 4 million plus workforce by handling the mammoth task of the logistics and movement of over 2 million laptops and desktops, and thereby creating a new work environment at the homes of these professionals. This led to a minimal delays in client deliverables and above all retained their trust and loyalty. At the helm of this massive initiative and completely in control is our guest of honor today, Ms. Debjani Ghosh, the first woman president of Nasscom and probably the youngest at age 32. It is indeed our privilege to have her here with us to share her views on women in a transforming IT world, among other things. The stalwart of the technology industry was also the first woman to lead Intel India and the Manufacturers Association for Information Technology, MAIT, and was also a member of the Executive Council at Nasscom. Just as it is our motto at FICCI to work with women at 3 levels, senior, middle, and grassroots, to enable women's empowerment through learning, skilling, and sharing. Debjani is a firm believer in the power of technology to enhance lives and livelihoods, leveraging it for the societal good. Her unique Think Digital, Think India strategy to support India's digital transformation journey is yet another example of her being an enabler of inclusive growth and development. Her 3-point agenda is talent development and reskilling, working on the innovation culture in the country and collaborating with governments across the world to open new opportunities for the Indian IT industry. Though this may seem very far-sighted and ambitious, there is something very humbling in all this with a humane and friendly touch. So thank you very much, Debjani, for gracing this event today. Thank you. I now introduce Ms. Janvi Fukan, National President, Flow, and Director, JTI Group. Janvi is the 37th National President of Flow, the women's wing of FICCI. As President of Flow, Janvi's focus is on sustainable livelihood for women's economic empowerment. Janvi is an entrepreneur and a co-founder of 2 National Tourism Award-winning companies, Jungle Travels India and Assam Bengal Navigation Company under JTI Group. Her companies are encompassed in travel and hospitality, boutique river cruising, small group specialized tours, tea and textiles, all of which empower young people's livelihoods, especially women and their communities. I now request Flow President, Ms. Janvi Fukan, to give her welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very warm welcome to all my friends and a very good morning. Thank you all for joining us today in our 6th edition of Flow's Eminent Woman series. As the 37th National President of Flow, the women's wing of FICCI, I felt the need to start the Eminent Woman series as a learning platform for our members and an opportunity to meet women icons of our country and beyond, up close and personal. We seek to honor those women who have excelled in their fields, inspired other women in their journeys, and have stamped their footprint in history. Ms. Debjani Ghosh is one such. She is Nasscom's 5th president and the first woman head in the 3-decade history of India's IT software trade lobby. Ms. Ghosh, she has a bachelor's degree in political science from Hyderabad and an MBA in marketing from SB Jain. She loves physics, she loves maths and statistics in school, but went into management and now in the IT world. So thank you, Ghosh, for taking your time off your busy schedule to meet us this morning. I remember a delightful evening spent with you and your mother in Difflu River Lodge, Kaziranga, over bonfire, tribal dances and dinner on a chilly New Year's Eve in 2018, perhaps. You are an avid traveler, a wildlife lover, a non-veg foodie, and I do hope that will bring you back to Assam very soon. And you're also such an unusual story. You were the first non-engineer and the only woman in Intel India when you joined in 1996 with an MBA and a pol science background. So we find, and I quote someone's words on, the woman who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd, but the woman who walks alone is likely to find herself in places no one has ever been before. Ms. Debjani Ghosh, you are one such person who has not followed the crowd, but has had the crowd following you, a woman transforming the IT world. You have been instrumental in developing Think Digital, Think India strategy to support India's digital transformation journey, especially as an enabler of inclusive growth and development. In 2018, January, you were felicitated by the President of India under the First Ladies Program, which honors exceptional women pioneers in their respective fields. You've also been listed as the 100 most influential women in the UK-India relations, in celebrating women's list. You are a firm believer that the power of technology can enhance lives and livelihoods, and leveraging it for societal good. And women now make up 35% of the IT workforce in India, with a majority under 30. But we understand that the main challenge seems to be in retaining them through middle management and getting on to leadership roles. And you have encouraged so many women on the path with you. And it was Nasscom which launched the first diversity initiative over a decade ago when the Indian tech industry was about 2 million employees. And under your leadership, you have been instrumental that women throughout the country have become an integral part. There's so many women in the IT industry who are a huge debt of thanks to you. And we find that now about 60% plus medium and large firms have institutionalized the diversity programs that you have started in Nasscom. So to tell you, you know about Flow, the organization that I represent now, that we are working towards bridging the gap between skills and jobs. We are trying with vocational and technical training. We try to impart life skills, financial literacy programs, digital programs on the online space now. We have tried this year in COVID times to still reach out with the online platform. And we have been succeeding in our way through our India bandwidth throughout the country. Recently, we completed a workshop, and the third one is on its way, on reaching out to the ITI students of the country. There are about 1,000 students per batch on various subjects. First one was on how to build a business and how to work on entrepreneurship, and we wish to create jobs creators, to become job creators and not job seekers. We wish to impart that entrepreneurship drive in young people to become micro entrepreneurs in their own spaces and to grow their nano businesses. So we know the power of technology, and you are the icon we wanted to meet today to say the how can we can see that the women's access to internet is such a crucial part of this. And we find it now with the COVID times that this is a crucial sector. We know the government is also applying its attention to the bandwidth issues in our rural areas, which are discouraging young people to being able to take advantage of this online platforms, which are available during COVID times. So the idea today is, besides your huge accomplishments and the difference you've made to the IT industry as a woman leader, please, we want to know, we are here to understand about your life and how it started and where you know you're taking India forward to. So we're all at flow. There are 17 chapters, Pan-India. Look forward to listening to you today. But before we start, we'd like to give a token of our appreciation. And I would request IT play a small introductory video about Debjani Ghosh and a virtual memento from our side. May I request IT to share it on the screen? Thank you, Taruna.
Thank you. Thank you, Janvi.
Yes.
And so now I will introduce you to Daritri Patnagar, the moderator for today's event, our dynamic chairperson of the 17th and the youngest flow chapter, Bhubaneswar. Daritri is also the chairperson and joint managing director of Diversified Energy Solutions Private Limited, a fast-growing infrastructure company implementing various large-scale industrial projects in Eastern India. She has a master's in social work from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and a master's in public administration from Harvard University, USA. Daritri has more than 24 years of experience working to empower some of the most valuable sections of the society, including women, children, and underprivileged people of India. She has worked with the global institutions like UNICEF, ActionAid International, CARE USA, UN Women, Water Health, and Bernard Van Leer Foundation globally. Daritri was felicitated by Minister of MSME, Government of India, for being a successful woman entrepreneur and mentoring other women. She has recently embarked upon a new project of her own startup company, Jivada Ventures Private Limited, developing Odisha's first wellness resort and themed amusement park. I now invite Ms. Daritri Patnaik to take over as she converses with the extremely affable and charming Debjani, and to hear her story and her journey over the years in the IT industry. Thank you, and over to you, Daritri.
Thank you, Taruna, for the introduction and giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. An accomplished professional and a huge proponent of gender equality, especially at workplace, we are honored to have Ms. Debjani Ghosh with us today. The first woman president of Nasscom, and many firsts to her credit. She firmly believes in hard work and perseverance. Her focus has been on talent, innovation, and skilling. We would like to hear more from her about her work and passion. May I now request Ms. Debjani Ghosh to give her address.
I think you need to.
Thank you very much, Taruna, Janabi, Daritri. First of all, it's a huge pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for that extremely generous and kind introduction that you all did. And Janabi, I have to tell you, My mom is after my life that as soon as we can start traveling again, we have to go to back to Kaziranga and Delphi. It's
Okay.
one of our favorite places. You've done such a wonderful job of it. So really looking forward to it. So
Lovely.
I hope we can all start traveling again.
Yes.
Um, I was really happy when Flo reached out to me to talk about the role women can play in transforming the world. Um, with all of you, and have a discussion with all of you. It's not often in our lives we get an opportunity to create something new, completely new. And that's the entrepreneurial high, right? That's what an entrepreneur will understand, because that satisfaction you get when you are creating something, when you're creating something absolutely new from scratch, it's unparalleled. There's nothing that compares to that. It's completely unparalleled. And I think what COVID has done is it's given the world that once in a lifetime, or I hope it's once in a lifetime. I hope we're not going to have many more, more pandemics that's going to put us in the same situation. But it has given us a very rare opportunity to create the world as we want it. Everyone knows that no matter how soon or how late the vaccine comes, um, we're not going to go back to the old world. We're not. So everybody who's sitting there and waiting for the old normal to come back, as Socrates said, if you want to build something new, you cannot hold on to the old. We have to let the old go. And we have to figure out, how do we want to build a new world? And I think it's just think about it. Just think about the power that gives us. This is, see, the new, everyone talks about a new norm as if it's going to get created out there by some magical unknown force. It's not. There is no magic out there. There is no unknown force out there. The new norm or the future is going to get created based on the actions you and I take today. So the question is, if we want to transform the world, are we taking the right actions today? And that's what I always ask whenever we are talking about changing things, whenever we are talking about creating something better. What are we doing today to drive the change? From an industry perspective, from a tech industry perspective, I'll give you that example, and then I'll come back to our world. Let's talk about we as women inhabitants of this world. What does it mean to us? I'll give you an example of the tech industry. We have looked at this opportunity, and we've looked at what do we want the future to be, in order for this industry to be able to do more, to be able to grow more. And of course, we've looked at, to be able to grow our businesses more. What do we need the new world to be like? And we know that technology is going to define the boundaries of the new world. It's going to be a hyper digital world, from education to healthcare to retail to whatever have you, to governments. It's going to be driven by technology. So it is going to be a hyper digital world. We also know that it is going to be a largely contactless world. Not completely contactless. I'm sure we'll all start going out with the vaccine. We'll get used to wearing a mask. We'll get used, hopefully, to social distancing. And as we get used to it, we will start going out again. But we are gonna, think about it. When are you gonna be comfortable shaking a stranger's hand? Think about it, even if you're vaccinated. In fact, my niece gave me a wonderful example. She was, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to eat a birthday cake after the birthday girl has blown all over the cake, blown out the candles, because I'm not going to be able to eat that cake again. And it's the little things like that. So COVID is going to change our thinking, for, I don't know, forever, but definitely long term, right? And it's gonna It's going to define new rules. So we are going to be in a largely contactless world. So as an industry, what does that mean? When you are living in a world where physical contact is limited, what becomes that key criteria for making a decision? It's trust. How much you trust the other person. Do you trust the company enough to do business? For example, Dharitri, if I have to work with your startup, do I trust you enough to ensure that you're taking the right measures to keep your employees safe, so suddenly your startup doesn't go bust or doesn't stop working because all your employees are suddenly, God forbid, infected? Right? Do I trust you enough? Do I trust you because I can't see you now? We're going to do Zoom calls. If I have to do business with you, do I trust you to ensure that you're doing the right things from a compliance perspective, from a legal perspective? You know, trust becomes so important for just the basic transaction of business. As employees, do I trust you enough as my manager to come back to work? Do I believe that you will sanitize the office right? Do I believe that you will take the right measures to ensure the food or the cafeteria is sanitized? You know, so trust becomes so important. You as an employer, do you trust your employees to ensure they are doing the right thing when they're working from home? So, you know, trust becomes so important in this contactless hyper digital world. And as an industry, if we want to build a competitive advantage, if Indian IT wants to stand out over, say, IT in the US or IT in Philippines or IT in China, we have to make trust our biggest competitive advantage. So knowing that, what do we do different today to ensure we can build that in the future, right? Or as the future? The second competitive advantage we want to build is talent, because COVID is accelerating the digital transformation. Digital transformation was always happening, but COVID has accelerated it to such an extent that we are seeing in the last 2-3 months, as Satya Nadella said, we have seen digital transformation that, you know, more higher digital transformation than what we have seen in the last 2-3 years. So in this kind of a world, it's not about the technology. If I was a competitor to Dharitri, she and I would have the same technology. What would make the difference is the people that we have. Can my people use the technology better than her people, or vice versa? That is what would define competitive advantage. So this is the time when I keep advising every CEO, go beg, borrow, build your talent pool. This is the time. There's such good people out there who are looking out for opportunities, who are unfortunately getting laid off. Seize them, grab them. This is the time to build talent, and this is the time to also invest in your own employees and drive that reskilling with tremendous urgency, right? The third one to me, for the industry, is how innovative are we? And in the past, innovation was all about technology, how cool the technology is. That's what defined innovation. I think that is changing now, or that we are changing that. We are making innovation about how big a problem are we solving. You know, you can innovate with very cool technology, but if you're not solving a big enough problem, you're not going to find a market. So how big a problem? And that this is what I always tell entrepreneurs. Half the battle is won if you can define a problem that people care so much about that they will pay for it, that they will pay for the solution. So don't get obsessed with technology, obsessed with the problem, obsessed with the impact. And I think that's the third one. And the fourth one to me is speed. How quickly can you do all this? Because if both Dharitri and I are competing, if she goes faster than me and does all of this, she wins. As simple as that, right? So speed is absolutely of essence, and it is going to be so important for us to consider. And this is sort of the industry playbook. This is the tech industry playbook that Nasscom is building with the industry leaders to say these are the 4 things that we have to work on. And just the last two, it's sort of not a pillar, but something, I think it's an umbrella that covers all the 4 pillars. Is I think in today's world, the responsibility, the lens on ethics, on responsibility. I talked about trust, but trust is a little different from ensuring that whatever we do it with focus on responsibility, sustainability. It becomes so important. So I don't even want to call it a pillar. For me, it's something that cuts across the 4 pillars. But if we are not building solutions that are responsible or sustainable, because all of us know the next big pandemic is not an if, but a when, and it's going to be about the climate. And every company today has to own up to that, small or big, and we have to act. So how are we doing all these things is going to make a big difference. So this is the industry playbook. And I think we women have to think of a new playbook for us. It's time. It's time that we women sat down and said, what's the new playbook to create the world the way we want to see it? I don't know about you, but I don't want the old normal to come back. The old normal was not a good place for women. Maybe a few of us, but admit it, whoever made it big had to fight the fight of her life to get where she is. I did, and I'm sure you did. How can we change that? Absolutely working hard and fighting for what you believe in, none goes away. But sometimes you do feel in your journey that the fight is becoming a little unfair because you're fighting for things that your peers are not fighting for, right? How can we at least make it an equal playing field? That's all I wish for. Let's make it an equal playing field. And what do we have to do to change the playbook to ensure that the new world provides us women with that equal playing field, or provides anyone with an equal playing field where nothing else matters? I think it is so important. And again, for us to do that, you have to care. You have to really care. You have to be disturbed by what's happening today. I am disturbed, waking up every morning, reading about young girls getting raped, reading about young girls getting killed. It does upset me. And we can't be uncomfortable talking about these things. We are, especially in these kind of forums, we are very uncomfortable talking about these things. We can't. I think if there's one mantra I have for women, and that has defined my journey from day one, as Janvi said, I started off with economics and pol science and technology. So for me, my journey has all been about being comfortable with the uncomfortable. That is what has defined my journey. And that is what has shaped me. Today, throw me in an uncomfortable situation, I will give it 150%. Throw me in a comfortable situation and I will be laid back. I may not even give it my 100%. So as women, I think the next few years, we have to really master the art of getting comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations, the uncomfortable work that we have to do, the uncomfortable work environment that we have to thrive in, because only then can we think logically and bring about the changes we need to bring about. But the bottom line again is, do we care enough? Do we care enough? Because if we don't, if we are happy in our little world, in our comfort zones, and it's good for you, it's good for me, and why the hell should I care? Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. So the question I really leave you with, and that's the only one that matters. Do you care enough to revolt? Do you care enough to fight? Do you care enough to stand up and say, no, this is not going to be my future? And if we do, and if we are ready to raise our voices and not just demand the change, but make the change happen, we will see a new future. But this one is to a large extent on you and me. And again, the future will be created based on the actions we take today. And if today we sit in the comfort of our homes and offices and refuse to act, nothing's going to change. So I'm going to stop here. I know there have been a lot of good comments coming in. I would love to take some questions and make it interactive. I hope I left you with some food for thought.
Thank you, Debjani. I mean, of course, not some food for thought, but lots. I think, to start with, when you talked about those four things, your four things that we need to focus on: trust, talent, innovation, and speed. I think the toughest one is trust. And especially in today's world where you're not going to have physical contact and a lot of unknown entities entering your life, through the digital space, that's going to be a tough one for everyone. And I completely agree with you that we should be obsessed with the impact in defining the problem and focusing on the impact. And I think that's what even our president's been focusing a lot on, the sustainability and responsibility part of our work. I'm so glad. I have to thank you. I've been very, very upset and distressed about the rape and the death of the girl in Uttar Pradesh. Very few of us raise
Manisha
our
Valmiki. Let's take her name. She's
yes,
Manisha Valmiki.
yes, and what she went through, and I mean, we've had Nirbhayas, and every day it's happening, and very few of us raise our voice. And I'm so glad you raised your voice. And it's always left to women rights activists or others working in that segment to talk about it. And I'm so glad that an iconic woman, an accomplished professional like you has spoken about it, and in this forum. So thank you very much. And I think more of us need to speak, as you said. We have many questions, and I don't want to, and what you spoke, I've been writing down so many interesting things, and like being comfortable in the most uncomfortable situation. I think you've challenged us. You've challenged us to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations and be uncomfortable in comfortable situations. And I'll come to that later in my conversation with you. But to begin our interactions, I will request our president, Jahnavi Pukon, to start with her questions to you. Jahnavi.
Thank you. Debjani, it's always been a delight to listen to you, but today you have touched the very core of what it is to be a woman in the IT world and in our responsibility in the civic society. So I'm happy to share with you that we wanted to raise our voice on this issue of the status of our women in the rapes that happen, in the feticide problem, and the other issues that India is still grappling with. We had Dr. Sunita Krishnan with us, and she was also an iconic woman for us in Flow. And we wanted to raise her voice, and she has shaken our consciousness. And we have all said that we need to know how in Flow we can start talking. So her advice to us as a women's body was to start sensitizing the men, the young boys, to start there, because this is part of the whole societal problem that we have here. It's so ingrained in these 70 years of our nation that is something we have committed to, that we will start on the sensitization of the men and girls and the women of the country, how you're raising your men.
Yeah.
That is something that we are through. I spoke about the ITIs that we're trying to reach out to, and the way forward is that also to talk about these problems. It is all a part and should be part of our education system. It should get into the curriculum. And these are something that we are taking note of, and we are taking up with the government, and every forum we get, we talk about this. Now, besides all the other questions which are out there for you, let me just ask you for the benefit of our members. Tell us about your first journey when you spoke about when you walked into Intel. I always found that very fascinating, that you were a non-engineer and the only woman. And when you faced that interview board and took that challenge with your background, how was it? You broke into that. And the lessons you learned from that. That is something that, I think our members need to know. I would like you to start with that first on this personal note.
So when I went for the interview, the Intel interview, because my dad forced me to. I didn't want to go. At that point, I'm talking about 96, I didn't even know what Intel was. No, I think hardly any of you knew what Intel was. We might have heard of a Pentium chip, but none of us would have known there's this company behind it, because Intel India at that point was all of 5 people. It was a tiny company. And I was interviewing in very big companies, blue chip companies, and I was very comfortable that I'm going to get a good job and a position, etc. So when Intel called me for an interview, I was dismissing it left. I'm not going there. And my dad insisted that it's a fabulous company. They're changing the world, what they create. So he made me read about, silicon and chips and all. And he said, you have to go. So I said, fine, I'll humor him. So I went for the interview. And then walked into the interview. And for the first time in my professional life, I met a woman leader. It was the only company where on the other side of the table was this amazing woman, amazing leader, right? And she happened to be a woman. And for those of you who were starting their careers in the late 90s and you were going for interviews, there weren't any women that we were meeting in interviews. It was all men. The only women might be in HR. That's about it, right? So when I saw Deborah, her name was Deborah Conrad, when I walked into the room, I saw Deborah Conrad and I saw how amazing she was. I think the interview, I asked her more questions than she asked me, because I was so intrigued by her. And, how did she get here? What all did she do? I was just so intrigued. And in my head, the only thing that was going on was, if this is a company where women can actually grow and get to positions on leadership, then Debjani Ghosh, this is the company you have to join. Because the one thing, thanks to my parents, I have always had maybe an overdose of is confidence and ambition. My parents have always taught me that I'm the best, and I grew up believing I'm the best, and I still believe in it. So, for me, it was, if I have to get to a top, I have to get to the top. So here was a company where there's a woman who had already reached a very strong leadership position. So for me, that was love at first sight, right? And that's the reason I decided to join Intel. And I asked Deborah years later, she was my mentor for many years. I asked her, by the way, I know why I joined, but why did you hire me? Because, I knew nothing about technology. I knew absolutely nothing about technology. And she told me that you didn't. But what I saw was passion, hunger, confidence, and ambition. When you told me that I want to be like you, you meant it. And I would rather hire somebody who is so hungry that they will do what it takes to get to the top than hire someone who knows it all, but has zero hunger or whatever in her or in him. So that's why she hired me. So that was my start at Intel. But like they say, reality hits you hard. So after a few weeks of joining Intel, reality really hit me hard. I was like, what the hell have I done? Because everyone is an engineer, everyone is tech, and it's not like Greek or Latin. When you're listening to them at that point, it felt like I was being invaded by Martians. There were language lingos I didn't even understand all around me. So I was having doubts. I was honestly having doubts that have I made the wrong choice? Did I get too carried away and maybe this is not the company for me? And I happened to meet a very senior leader at Intel. I was in US for an induction, met this leader, and they say life changes over coffee. So we sat down to have coffee and my life changed because he asked me how I was doing. He was a very senior person, took the time to ask me how I was doing. And I blurted out saying, I think I made the wrong choice. It's a great company, but it's not a company for me. I feel completely like a fish out of water. I stand out like a sore thumb. Every room I walk into is all men or all engineers, if not both. And I just stand out. And he told me something which has become my life mantra since then. He said that when you walk into a room and you're the only one of your kind, be it your gender or your background, whatever, but you are the one that is different, what happens? Everyone in that room is curious about you. They want to know why you got there. You have an advantage which no one else has because you have everybody's attention. When you speak, they will listen because they want to know what the hell are you doing in that room when you're so different from all of them. So you have two options in front of you. One, you can duck under the table and hide from all the attention. Or two, you can seize that opportunity, seize that attention, and make yourself be noticed and heard. Because you'll have it easier than the rest because of your difference. And I think that conversation completely changed something in my mind. Because till then, I would walk into a room timidly, thinking that I have to apologize for being there. I don't match up with the rest. After that conversation, I remember the next meeting I walked into with supreme confidence. And it just completely changed the dynamics. I think our body language does so much, just completely changed the dynamics. And since then, I have never walked into a room timidly. Never, never. Because I think it's the worst thing we can do to ourselves. Even if I'm the only woman or only non-engineer or only whatever, as long as I'm prepared for the meeting, as long as I've worked hard to prepare for the meeting, as long as I have a point of view I can add to the meeting, I will walk into the room with my head held high, not questioning why I'm in the room. Let the others question that. I will not question myself. And I think that's sort of been the foundation of the journey. And, and the last thing, as I said, I started getting very comfortable being uncomfortable. So put me in a role, put me in a new job, put me in a country. I mean, I traveled so much. I would change jobs in the same company every 2 or 3 years. So the moment I had fantastic mentors at Intel and I had fantastic sponsors, not just at Intel, but even out. And they kept me true. The moment I would get comfortable, they would remind me that it's time for me to move on. It's time for me to do something else. And I think that has kept the learning going. And the more you learn, your confidence grows. So for me, it's a superpower, I guess, is ability to learn and hunger to learn. And that never stops, even today. If today you take away for learning from me, my confidence will go in a day. My confidence is there because I'm learning new things. And the second thing is just being able and being okay with things not going the way I wanted to go, being comfortable with the uncomfortable. So I think those are the two things which has driven my career, not just in Intel, but more in Nasscom, because again, being a non-tech person and being responsible for the entire tech industry, some people will laugh. A lot of people say, what is this? You're not an engineer and you're responsible for the tech industry. I tell them that it's the best thing that can happen to the industry.
Yeah.
Because I look at the tech industry not from the perspective of tech. I look at the tech industry from the perspective of what this industry can do to the rest of the world, to people. And that's what makes it real for me, right? So yeah, so that's the journey till now.
Yeah. That is why it is, that I needed my members to listen to that bit. So that guts you show, that the difference you make can only happen from within. So going on to the next thing, Debjani, you gave up this cushy corporate job with Intel with 5 members then to what you are heading, Intel in Asia, but you gave it all up. And you took on the challenge of Nasscom, the NGO. I mean, God knows what could have happened that time. But I think you love challenges, like you said, in your life, and how you took that forward. We would like to tell us more about that. So the fact that because of your voice today, that women in India, in the IT, are where they are. But you also can see that with your voice, how are we going to reach to the bottom of the pyramid? That is, I think, your next goal, what you're looking at in COVID times, that you can see. That there, all the young girls out there who, if they had that IT connectivity, that better bandwidth, they would all be listening online and being able to achieve. We need that to happen. And I guess you are going to be doing that for us and taking it to the government. So do tell us a bit about that.
The industry is going to do that. I think all of us are going to do that. But joining Nasscom was the best career decision I made. Absolutely the best career decision I made. See, as I said, I need a challenge. In order for me to give my best, I'm so used to it by now that I need things to be uncomfortable. It's clear. And for me, my work has to be, because I'm a workaholic, my work has to be something that I'm passionate about. And I've stopped apologizing for being a workaholic. I've stopped apologizing for being pathetic at work-life balance, because that's my choice. And I think each of us have to decide what makes sense for us, rather than having this framework or rule that has to apply to everyone. No, we're humans. Each one is different. So, each one decides, and there's no good choice, bad choice. Each one decides. The only thing is, once you choose whatever you're passionate about, stop feeling guilty about it, and stop apologizing for it. So I've come to terms, I've made peace with my choice. I'm an absolute workaholic. I work right through the day and evening, and I integrate my family into my work, and they're good with it. They're good. They know how passionate I am about my work, so they're good with it. For me, I came back to India in 2012. Intel sent me back in 2012 to head South Asia, India and neighboring countries. And my job was to build the technology consumption market in India. And as I started working on it, as I said, I always move from job to job. So I knew I'll do it for 2 years and then move on to something else. I was very keen at that time to maybe go and do a stint in China. I was very keen to learn about China. But 2 years passed and I said, no, I don't want to go anywhere. And luckily, I got, my term got extended. So I got 3 more years. I was, 5 years passed. And then I was having a chat with a mentor of mine. Some of you may know him, Mr. N. Chandrasekhar, who heads Tata Sons. And Chandra has been one of the most honest mentors I've had. The most honest conversations that I have is with him. I was having this chat with him and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, Chandra, for me, I'm not into technology for the sake of technology. I'm into technology because what fascinates me about technology is how people use it, what it does for people. And when you look at technology from a people lens, there can be no better playground than India. Because the kind of problems that exist in India that technology can solve, you will not get anywhere else. So I want to stay in India. I want to continue in India, but I want a bigger platform. I want a platform that will really allow me to make a difference with technology. And then I think the timing was perfect because as I was going through this, Nasscom was looking out for a new president, and you know, they said fine. Chandra was on the interview board, and he said fine, interview. And there were other mentors like CP Gurnani, Som Mittal, who all came back and said, Debjani, this is made for you. Go for the interview, do it. If you're really passionate about what you're saying, this is the place for you. So I listened and I did it. And I must say that when I went into it, I wasn't sure what I had got myself in for. But now it's the best decision I made. I mean, this industry is capable of so much, the tech industry. It's capable and it's filled with people who care. It's filled with giants, you know, when you talk about leadership. And having the privilege of working with them to make a difference, I couldn't have asked for more. So, yeah, so that's the Nasscom story.
So Debjani, interesting. Janvi, can I just take over from here? Yes. Very, very interesting to hear about your stories. And what comes to my mind is Sri Aurobindo's quote that never be satisfied with what you've accomplished. Keep aiming higher and higher. And I think that's what's been also your mantra. To now, I want, like Janvi also asked this question. I wanted to ask you, like, we have 700 million Indians. That's half of India's population, which has no access to internet and technology. And we are witnessing the great digital divide during this pandemic, when almost everything has moved to the digital platform. Do you think COVID would have dramatically improved the enhancement of technology in the country? And how do you view India post-COVID to pre-COVID from a technology point of view?
See, technology is getting democratized. Okay. So technology is not the unique factor anymore. Technology is getting democratized, and COVID has singularly accelerated the democratization of technology significantly. Right. So technology will be available to the next billion. It may look and feel different. For example, India is not likely going to be a country where the first choice of access to the internet is a PC, like in many other countries. In India, the first choice of access will be a mobile phone. And and I believe that we have to really innovate here. And this is why I think people first, people-led innovation is so important. We have to innovate because we have to ensure that our people, the next billion, can access the internet using feature phones, not even smartphones. And this is what you would see companies like Geo, etc., doing, right? And they are absolutely innovating around these lines. So I'm not worried about the hardware. The hardware is the way technology is democratizing. The hardware is not going to be a problem. I think that's today. All of us, from our helpers to our cooks to our drivers and their families, they all have access to phones. They all have access to WhatsApp. They all have access to internet connectivity, right? So it's India is a large country. Nothing will happen overnight. It'll take a little time, but it's definitely happening. I think what we have to focus on is two things. Technology is not going to be the problem. The problem is going to be digital literacy. How many people know how to use technology to benefit from it to the fullest for education, for work? Because if you do not drive digital literacy on a mission, Unfortunately, people are just going to use the technology pretty much for gaming and entertainment. And we're not going to get the full benefit out of it, right? Communication and entertainment. So digital literacy to me is critical. And this is what Nasscom Foundation and government, everybody is putting a lot of focus on. And then the other thing for me is development of local content. I think that is critical. We have to develop Thinking Bharat. So we have to develop content which is available in local languages. We have to develop content that is more intuitive, because again, when you're thinking Bharat, a lot of people will not be able to read and write. So how do they interact or use your content if they're not literate? So it has to be very intuitive in the way we devise. So I think this is a fantastic problem for innovation for the industry. Is how do we innovate to make technology tremendously intuitive, so that even if you can't read and write, you can use it, and you can use it for work, you can use it for education. And that's where I see a lot of um, Indian innovation focused on, and whether it's our startups or large companies. So to me, it's a matter of time um, that this will happen. The digital divide will be bridged. And yes, I do believe that COVID has increased the urgency to do more, because COVID has shown us what happens when the gap between the haves and the have-nots increases. And we can't afford it. So COVID has just accelerated the urgency to do more.
Thank you so much, Debjani. So, yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. I couldn't hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. There's so many questions and so many things to know. I think we need more than an hour for this conversation. In fact, I've been like asking Janvi, I have so many questions, time's running short.
That people can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, whatever. I'm more than happy to interact there.
Yes. Yeah, before then, we'll have one more question from our governing body member, Jyotsna Angara. So Jyotsna, if you can ask your question. Jyotsna?
I think you're on mute.
Jyotsna, you have to unmute. Yeah.
Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So you've led the manufacturing sector's IT division for its growth, implementation and development and whatever else. However, what we find is women usually do not embrace, or adoption of technology is not accepted very easily, especially as we know that technology is the way forward in every sphere today, including various industry verticals or sectors, whatever. What, in your opinion, are the reasons for this? And specifically with the manufacturing sector, because we at Flow are trying to build a pool of women-led, women-owned industries in the manufacturing sector. So what do you see Flow? How does Flow address something like this?
Sorry, there was a mix and match of various questions in that. So what is the one thing you want me to answer?
How does Flow address the lack of acceptance in women to technology in the manufacturing sector?
I don't believe that women lack acceptance of technology. Women lack options. Women lack choices. Women lack access. I have not seen a single, and first of all, we've got to stop generalizing, right? There may be one or two women out there who are, and there are one or two men out there who are like, no, our technology is not for me, but that's fine. So we've got to stop generalizing. But by and large, I work with a lot of young girls, especially from underprivileged communities. I mean, give them access and they can change the world. and they learn so fast, right?
Okay.
So I don't absolutely believe that women are are hesitant to adopt technology. I think as Flow, what you should be doing is ensuring how you can increase access to technology to women. It's all about that. You provide them with access, they will use it. If they don't have access, they're not going to be able to use this. And that's why I think the bigger challenge in front of us is not trying to figure out the technology. The bigger challenge in front of all of us is to figure out how can we scale digital literacy? How can we scale relevant content availability? Technology, trust me, is getting democratized faster than you and I can handle. And I absolutely do not buy in. And I think we have to stop talking about it, because if we talk, people will believe us. We have to stop saying that women don't use technology. We have to start saying that women can use technology better than anyone else, but women lack access to technology. Let's solve the right problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was
I think you're absolutely right. It's about the access and how we use it. And you've laid down like digital literacy when we're talking about the underprivileged, and Flo's working on it, as President Flo Janavi Pukar mentioned. That's been our focus, to ensure that we provide adequate skills, upskill, reskill, and provide focus on digital literacy, and ensure that we empower young girls and women to the maximum. So Debjani, it was wonderful, and I think we'll continue our conversations. So many issues, so many similarities, and it was like deja vu, hearing you speak. And I think the stories of women, and especially when we are passionate about our goals in life, it kind of seems very similar. And that's what binds us also together, and the struggles we've had, and the difficult glass ceilings that we have to all break. So it was very, very interesting, and we're very privileged to have you with us today. And thank you, Taruna, so much. And now I would request our president to give concluding remarks and vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Debjani, we really don't want to let you go, but I suppose we must. But let me conclude by saying here that there's so many takeaways from this session, and so much of responsibility that we feel as a women's body. We will be reaching out to you to learn more. We'd be happy to know that we are tying up with NSDC, and we have a MOU on the 2nd of October, and we've told them of what we would like to do. We need to get the content so we can try to reach through the ITIs and others. So that is our hope, that through the 17th we try in our way for that. And I would also like to mention that you've said that women must own the space, and that ambition is something we should be proud about, and we should own it. And we should definitely stop apologizing for whether are we good, are we not good enough, are we in the IT, are we not in the IT. And you, like I must keep saying, as an MBA and a pol science background, are doing this in the man's world, in the IT world rather, not a man's world. Because my son, who was doing accountancy for his undergrad, now wants to switch to computer sciences. And he says, I have to struggle, must try, because the future only belongs to that. So, and here you are working on revolutionizing this, and you're bringing that human face to it. That it is finally, at the end of the day, behind all the machinery and the technology, it is the human being, and the feelings, the the empathy that you're bringing to this field. So on that note, we couldn't be more prouder in Flow to have had you as in our Eminent Women series. And I would like to thank Taruna Patel, Chairperson Flow Ahmedabad, for putting together the session. Thank you to Tariq, Chairperson Flow Bhubaneswar, for moderating the session. And I would like to thank all my past presidents, Flow, quite a large number of them who are watching in today, all my chapter chairs, and the members of Flow. Thank you all for being with us. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Debjani. Lovely being here. And just last parting words for me, for all those who think the IT industry is a man's world. The software industry was invented by a woman, Ada Lovelace. Let's never forget that.
Yes,
so,
correct.
So we need to now reclaim the space.
Yes,
so with that, thank you very much and take care. I will get into another meeting. Bye.
Thank you, Debjani, for being with us. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Switch.
Thank you, everyone, for being there. Rupa, I think Daritri is gone. Daritri, thank you very much. Okay, bye, everyone from Ahmedabad chapter.
Bye, Taruna. Lovely session. Very, very good session. Excellent session.
Thank you, Sonal. Yes, very empowering, actually, with words.
Yes, very empowering.
Yes,
Yeah.
very.
Yeah, I was having a little problem with my throat, so couldn't say much. But yeah, I had a question for her too, because really, she